alone. I think the larger picture is that Russia is trying to really bang the table to get listened to as it perceives its own situation increasingly as being weak. We have to realize that Russia is being developed, but quite not as comparable, let's say, to the US, to Europe, and particularly to China. They are pulling away. And Russia's particularly economic model, I think also its political model, but its economic model is finite. It is increasingly realizing that we all have chosen the way of the energy turnaround, and that what Russia is continuing to offer, and it is gaining more than 50% of its state budget from the export of oil and gas, will not be sought after by us in the near future. So it has to try to consolidate its international position. It's realizing that the big issues are not being debated any longer between Moscow and Washington, it's between Washington and Beijing. And therefore, I think what the Russian leadership is aiming at is, in a way, so to speak, rolling back into the 19th century, into an international setup where the big guys are sitting together and deciding where the little ones have to sit. Sphere of influence, buffer zones, and the lot. And that's what he is ultimately trying to achieve. And Ukraine has turned out to be a vehicle, more or less, for that. As also, it's not a threat against Ukraine alone. We have seen over the last weeks that threats have been uttered against also Sweden and Finland, for example, European Union partners.
There's a perception that the only language that President Putin understands is aggression. And if you match aggression with aggression, he will back down, as he's often perceived as an international bully who tries to take advantage of perceptions of weakness and division among Western allies. Do you think, given your intimate knowledge, that that is the right approach at this time? And therefore, would you suggest that some of our Western allies grow a backbone and actually take a more serious approach to supporting Ukraine with military hardware and possibly even troops?
Well, I don't think we should think in terms of aggression as the only language. And I don't think there is a possible military solution to this conflict. I cannot imagine that a Ukrainian army, as well equipped as it might be, might withstand a large-scale Russian attack. So what we have to do, and what we have successfully been preparing to do, is try to preempt anything like that happening by a reaction that is twofold. It's a reaction of resolve and determination, putting a price tag on possible Russian aggression, while at the same time, as the US Secretary of State does these days, being ready to resolve a conflict in dialogue we are not responsible for, but we are ready to resolve it. And what we have to try to do is to clearly indicate to the Russian leadership that what we are ready to do will affect its power base economically, because Russia as a country being developed, yes, but basically the two main tools of power are repression and bribery. If there is opposition, you harass them, you lock them up. If there is a real problem, you throw money at it. And that money is needed. And if we indicate that that money will not flow any further because there will be no exports or whatever, etc., financial interactions will be disrupted, then that would be a situation that could make the Russian leadership think twice, because it is about its own power base back home.
But let me ask you about the Ukraine, because clearly the Ukraine is so closely connected to the Russian soul. Will they ever seize some sort of, it's not a control thing, but will they ever say the Russians, the Ukraine can actually join Western forces like NATO?
Well, it's for Russia a lot about psychology. Ukraine, as Belarus, is being considered part of sort of the own flesh. That is its history of orthodoxy, etc., etc. But Russia had to accept that other territories they had annexed, occupied over the centuries to build their colonial empire, because what we have seen in 1992 was not only the fall of the Soviet Union, but was a dismantling of a whole former colonial empire, the Russian Empire, that they had to accept that many of those parts were going their own way. And they had to accept that, for example, those countries they annexed in the 1940s with the hand with the help of Germany, the Baltic states have joined EU and NATO. And Russia knows well that what they are up to, which is to change the international peace order, is about rules Russia has agreed to, the Soviet Union had agreed to, and that nothing has changed. That is what might seem to be irritating in the current situation, that all of a sudden Russia decides to act as it does. But it is in a situation where it feels that time is running out and it has to consolidate a position, and it will try to get as much as it can. Therefore, everything will depend on the determination of our reaction. And I am glad to see the extent to which there is a consolidated position amongst Western allies. And I will definitely include also the German government into this. There is a readiness to react if need be.